All right, everybody. Thanks so much for stopping by another live episode of Real Estate Titans, sponsored by Lion Bolt Media. I'm your host, Greg Fowler, traveling throughout the marketplace, interviewing the top real estate professionals in our field, essentially gathering insight, inspiration, really drives and motivates these top producers above and beyond everybody else in what I'd like to consider a real estate titan. Our very special guest and feature titan for today, Jeff. I'm so excited. Jeff Morrell. Now, Jeff, being from Colorado Springs, Colorado, in our hometown, these are very special episodes to me because I love showcasing just amazing, incredible professionals in our city here. So it's an honor to have you on the show, Jeff. It really is.
Well, it's an honor to be here. I appreciate you asking me to do it. So
yeah,
thank you very much.
It's great. I can't wait to dive into the series of questions. Really, everybody gets to know you deeper as a man, as a professional. So much experience and expertise, in the real estate world. So if you're ready, Jeff, let's just jump into the questions.
I'm ready. Let's go.
So the first one being just telling everybody a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, again, thank you very much for having me on. So, I've been here in Colorado for about 20 years. My wife and I, just to go back a little bit, I'm from Indiana originally, born and raised. So crazy story. I mean, really my senior year in college, I went to Butler University back in Indianapolis. And my senior year, there was a film crew that came to town. And the movie Hoosiers. I don't know if you ever
for sure.
That one? Gene Hackman, Dennis Hopper, all that stuff. Anyway, so I ended up working on that movie. I'd always loved movies since I was, about 5 years old, whatever. I can remember all this.
Good.
So I ended up working on this movie. I was really planning on doing TV news. That's really what I was going to school for. Which I have to say, I'm glad I got out of that. But, anyway, that's a whole other story. But I ended up working on Hoosiers. I graduated, and two buddies of mine, we decided to head to California. It was one of those things that this good friend of mine, Ira McAlilly, he's out there in California still to this day working in the business. But, first night back from spring break, and we're sitting in the back of class, and he had a friend that lived in California, and he'd been out there to visit over spring break. And we sat there in the back of that class and talked to California for 3 hours. And, we just decided, let's go out and try it. And it was one of those things I think where, if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. And I didn't want to regret it. I think I didn't want to be kicking myself 10 years later. Gosh, I wonder what would have happened if I'd have gone to California. So I ended up, we graduate, we drive across country, 48 hours nonstop, three of us rotating between tanks of gas, and got into, I remember June 12th of 1986, I arrived in LA. And within 2 weeks I was working, in the film business as a production assistant. That's where you start, kind of bottom man on the pole.
Yeah.
But worked my way up very quick. I mean, within 6 months, I was first assistant director, working on, all kinds of commercials, and MTV was still music back then. So I did about 100 music videos, all those 80s bands. I got lots of stories to tell.
Oh, that's killer. I love that.
But I had a great time out there. I ended up meeting my wife actually at a church I was going to. This was about, 8 or 9 years later. And ended up, we got married, and the church was growing. They needed help. We ended up going into full-time ministry, which was a major shift out, whatever. But it was, I love doing it, love working with people. I've always loved working with people. And so it was a pretty easy fit. Major pay cut, but it was a pretty easy fit,
Right.
Loved doing it. Did that for about 7-8 years out there. And then, we got two daughters. They were 4 and 1 when we decided it was just time to make a move. We had no family out there in LA.
Okay.
And, and it was either going to be Colorado where my wife's family was, or back to Indiana. We'd come here to visit a couple times, absolutely loved it, and made the move to Colorado. So that was December of 99 when we did that. So came here, I started working with my father-in-law. Had no idea what I was going to do when I got here. I mean, it was a total leap of faith to even, get in the car and drive out here. But worked with him. He's a real estate developer. So developed a couple high-end neighborhoods here, residential neighborhoods. So I worked with him on those. And then 9/11 hit. All his projects just came to a screeching halt. So I ended up getting my license doing residential sales back in January 2002.
Okay.
That's when I started. And then, but I wanted my wife to be home with the kids. They were 6 and 3 actually when I got my license.
Okay.
And so, but going from a salary with my father-in-law to a straight commission, it was like, okay, it's buckle up, everybody. It's do or die time. So we're closing this month, there's no food on the table. So, I just jumped into it, full steam ahead. Within, I think my first year I did like 33, 34 deals my first year. I mean, I was busting myself around the clock. I mean, literally, and it paid off in a big way. about 2005, my wife got her license because I just couldn't keep up with the business. I mean, we were in the top 20 in town out of, 4,000 plus realtors back in the day. We ended up going to Keller Williams. We built a team over there. And I was there for 5 years. We had a small team. I know for several of those years, we had the #1 Keller Williams team here in town, doing 180, 190 homes a year, pretty much. Did a lot of business. But I ended up leaving there in 2010. Nothing, great company, nothing wrong with Keller Williams, excellent company. For me personally, I just wasn't using any of their tools and their systems. I had all my own things in place, and I just figured, it was quite a bit of money to be there for what I was getting for it. I mean, again, for myself,
Fair enough.
So I ended up going back to an independent company. I was there for about 7 years, and then 2 years ago, a friend of mine reached out and showed me EXP, and I took a look at that. That just made sense for me, and so we ended up making the move to EXP, and that's where we've been now for the last 2 years, and it's been good,
Wow.
So the journey, I think I'm on my 4th or 5th career at this point. I don't know,
Yeah, but landing on it into real estate though, Jeff, I mean, it's absolutely incredible to me. The journey that you started with is making those moves and not having those regrets and really taking those leaps of faith or chances, if you will, to really just go where it inspires you and motivates you to do your best work and obviously help as many people in your path as possible. I just love the fact that you'd kind of looked at it from a standpoint of, growing to certain points in your career and then adjusting for personal reasons in life and having utmost balance. And it's not easy for so many professionals to do on any top tier level. So I definitely would love to talk about that here in a little bit, but I love the fact that you kind of painted that picture so everybody knows that it's not just, you get there and then it's just a simple path. There's always, evolving and really changing and growing as a person, whether it's personally or professionally. So again, you're living, breathing proof of that, Jeff. And I love it to the highest levels. So when we go into this standpoint into real estate and all the changes that you've done, but 17 plus years in the business and going through, there's a lot of knowledge, there's a lot of expertise into that. And we'll dive into that in a couple questions, but the next one ends up being the why question, Jeff. I mean, what really motivates you, excites you every day to get out of bed, to do what you do to the level that you do it at? What are your drivers? What's your why?
Sure. I mean, first and foremost for me, I would have to say it's my family,
Love that.
Just wanting the best for them. That definitely got out of balance back in the day. And we can talk about that here in a little bit, but that's always been the driver, just wanting, my wife, one of my kids to just have some amazing experiences. We've been able to do a lot of things, over especially the last 10 years or so. I've been able to travel a lot. We've been to Paris and, England and Ireland twice. And, I went to Dubai. I've been, all over Mexico probably 20 times. I mean,
Beautiful.
Disney World. I mean, just a lot of great experiences. I know for me as a kid, that's what I remember.
Sure.
Those memories, whatever. And I wanted my kids to grow up with that. It was definitely out of balance for a long time.
Okay.
And I caught hold of that finally, which I'm grateful for. But that would be the driving force for me, would be definitely just, wanting the best for them. I think the other thing though, that really makes me passionate about doing what I'm doing, especially right now, is just, I mean, I love real estate. I love working with the agents. I love the mindset of most realtors out there, the really good realtors. I mean, they love working with people. They're not afraid to take some chances. I mean, living on commissions, like most people, that was my biggest fear when I first started.
Right.
And I remember my broker owner, the very first one I worked with, we had coffee. I remember it was, about 2 weeks before I'm getting ready to start with him. He's like, what's your biggest concern? The fact that I'm going to be 100% commission and my wife's not going to have a job. I'm like, oh my God, it's terrifying.
Right.
He just laughed. He'd been in it for 25 years. He said, well, we just got to change your mindset about commissions. Would you rather somebody tell you what you're worth, or would you rather go determine what you're worth? Because you get what you're paid for here.
That's beautiful.
I mean, you get what you work for. And so I just had to make that shift in my head and everything else. But I think right now I love working with the agents, but I'm passionate about helping agents, I think, get to whatever level they want to get to in their business. Seriously, I love working with them. I had a team for a long time. I've got a much bigger team now, actually, because of the EXP model. But but love working with agents to help them, again, get out of the box a little bit, and to, the whole idea of multiple income streams is huge to me.
Love that.
And we can talk about that here in a little bit with some things that just challenges that I've experienced, whatever, where that's really come in handy. But
Sure.
I know most agents right now, they're not prepared for stuff like that. 2008, I wasn't prepared for that, and lesson learned. You go through something like that, and it will change the way you work and the way you think about things, But so I think, working with agents, love that. Yeah. I love how the agents operate and what they do. And I love getting there, hearing their stories and stuff, but definitely my family, that would be priority number one.
I think that's huge, Jeff. And again, for everybody to know you deeper that way, and the driving forces, they're above ourselves, right? Our family is crucially important. And it is truly, to my opinion, the most important thing out there. I mean, it really is that unit. But when you're talking about serving and helping others in the community, your colleagues and your peers, I think that's fantastic. Really raising the bar for knowledge and integrity and really understanding the craft which you're in. But diving into diversification and setting yourself up for your future and not kind of looking at it short term, but more midterm and long term, I think is fantastic, which I can't wait to dive into a little bit here deeper. But I think that really gives everybody a window as to who you are and why you do what you do, which is fantastic. And again, why you've been able to hit the levels that you've hit and continue to do so, Jeff, which is incredible. So I do want to shift into this, and this might tie into, kind of growth patterns, things along those lines, but this is actually one of the crowd pleasers. Everybody really tunes in to learn from the Titans and really understand how everybody is growing and scaling their business from whatever level they may be at. So, Jeff, if you could look back at your career thus far and pick or choose a few things that you added to your business that took it from one level to the next, what really helped propel you to that top tier? What's that look like for you? What advice would you give out to everybody?
A couple of things. I think about 6 months after I got my license, I went to a conference in Phoenix. It was the Craig Proctor conference, which, the agents have been around very long. Most of them haven't heard of Craig. I mean, he's not quite as big as he was back in the day. He was a RE/MAX agent in Toronto. Okay. And he still does seminars and stuff. And I would recommend anybody go to his seminar. Phenomenal. I loved it because he was actually in the business, not just somebody out there teaching people how to do the business, but they haven't sold a house in 20 years. Right. There's a lot of those people out there. And again, I can learn from anybody. Those are great things to go to, but I loved Craig's program. I went to his seminar, about 6 months after I got my license. It was funny because the first weekend I had so I get my license and I start up. It's January 2002. It's the first Saturday. I meet my broker owner. He's like, meet me at Starbucks, bring some of your cards. I'm like, okay. So I show up over there. We have coffee. We talk for a little bit. He says, okay, leave your car here. Come with me. So I get in his car. We take off. He drops me off out here on the east side of town in the neighborhood. Wow. And it was kind of a sunny day, but it was still kind of chilly, but sunny and nice Colorado wintertime, not that bad. But he's like, here, it's 10 o'clock. Let's see, I'll be back here at 4. Go knock on those doors. You got your cards? Good luck. Go get them. I'm like, oh. So I'm out there knocking on doors, and I came back. I'm not kidding. That night, I got back home. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to do this again. This was horrible. Wow. I've been around for 25 years. I know there's still people that do that and stuff. Oh, sure. For me, I just didn't want to do that. I'm like, I've got to get a website. Like he had no website. He was very not tech savvy at all. This is 18 years ago. But I started searching for a website, and I found a good website, success website. It was part of Craig's program.
Love it.
And so, that website really worked for me, whatever. I went to his seminar, and the switch flipped for me completely. I'm here at this seminar for 3 days. You've got some mega agents there, these guys doing $1 million a year and teams of 100 agents, all this kind of stuff, whatever. And I learned a long time ago, you become who you hang around. And well so I wanted to be around these guys. Well, he was pushing his coaching program. And, I didn't tell my wife for 6 months because I put $14,000 on a credit card. She's going to absolutely be in divorce court. But it worked. I mean, to the point where she had to get her license as well. But, I eventually told her, obviously I was part of that coaching program for 9 years. Wow. Getting that call every 2 weeks, having that accountability, how many calls did you make? How many appointments did you have? Okay, what's the goal for next time? Okay, this kind of stuff. Like that helped me so much, Huge. I learned a long time ago, I think, any kind of sales business, it's just, you got to be out there talking to people. I see people, I used to see people come into, some of the offices and stuff, whatever, they'd just be hanging out in the office. I'm like, get out of the office. I mean, I learned that within my first week, I think, of doing it. I remember just going and sitting up at Starbucks, and I'd be sitting there on my laptop making calls, and I'd overhear conversations going on around me. And seriously, probably, I'd be in there sometimes for 8 hours because I had no business at that point. I'm just getting started. But I remember taking my business cards, and I would probably about every hour. So I'd just get up and I'd walk over to that table and, hey, excuse me, just real quick, I just want to introduce myself. Here's some of my cards, if I can help you out, if you know anybody, I mean, I'll definitely, give you a thank you gift of some sort. If, whatever, we'll work that out. And you send somebody to me. And my first deal actually came from that, I ended up there was a military couple that were getting transferred out of state and needed to sell their house. And that's what happened. It was through a business card at a Starbucks, and that got the ball rolling for me, but getting out of the office was huge. But that coaching program was phenomenal for me. I mean, I could not recommend that enough, having that accountability, So,
yeah. I mean, Jeff, everything that you're talking about is extremely, applicable for anybody who's watching or listening to this. When you're talking about really basing it off the fundamentals of hiring the right people or surrounding yourself with the right people, whether it's a paid coach or it's a mentor or an affiliation group of some sort, people who are driving you, motivating you to have accountability, to really stay consistent, I think is phenomenal. I really appreciate what you said about working with people who practice what they preach. There are a lot of gurus. There are a lot of coaches who have been detached from the industry for quite some time. I think that working with people who walk the talk and practice what they preach, I think is crucially important, and really surrounding yourself that way. To me, the beginning story, what you're talking about is your initial broker, and that person just dropping you off like that.
Yeah.
It's such an incredible visual story. And I'm sure that there's so many people watching or listening that maybe that happened to them, inadvertently. And I think that that just kind of goes through your thought process of innovation. You experienced something and you said, you know what, there's got to be a better way. So even then, from the very beginning, your thought process was innovation. Your thought process was out of the box. Your thought, how can I take this and do something else? And that's such a continual note through the Titan series. And so many professionals like you, Jeff, who just really get it. It's not doing what everybody else is doing. It's looking at it from a different perspective. How can it be done better, faster, smarter? And not just for yourself, but for your consumers, the clients, and the team that's around. So I love that you're mentioning all these different things.
And I think doing stuff, Greg, like if I can just jump in, I think, like again, like one of Craig's big thing, which I think is so key, how do you make yourself stand out? I mean, there's 4,000 realtors here in Colorado Springs.
Right.
I got a friend down here in Phoenix. I mean, there's like 30,000. I mean, Denver. I mean, it's just, how do you make yourself stand out? Why should a client hire you instead of somebody else? What makes you different? What makes you stand out or better or whatever?
Sure.
So one of Craig's thing is, again, the USP, unique selling proposition. So he had tons of those. And, just different things that you could pick that would, kind of resonate with you. And then your coach would work with you how to adjust that and make it work for your market. Like one of the things that we did, we still do this, we had an 18-month buyer guarantee.
Okay.
So any buyer that would work with us, we give them 18 months after they close on the house. If for any reason they're not happy with the house, they wanted another bedroom on the main level, or it's too far of a drive to work, or the next door neighbor's making them crazy. I mean, whatever, we would either buy the house back from them, or we would sell it for free. So they could find the next house. Now, there's conditions on that. It's your program, little asterisk, some conditions apply, whatever. Yeah. But I never had to buy a house. But I will tell you, I can't tell you how many buyers that they're getting emails from 5 or 6 agents. And I would always mention, like, first of all, I'd always do something like, just like, I have no idea what the other agents are sending you. And again, if they were signed on with somebody, I'm out. Like that's right. Hey, you got a great agent. Good luck. Whatever. If anything changes, let me know.
Sure.
But if most of them they haven't signed on with anybody, so they're still fair game. Well, I don't know what those agents are sending you. Just so you know, our list includes all the foreclosures, all the pre-foreclosures, the divorce sales. Now, they're probably getting all those listings from all those agents too. But if the other agent hasn't explained any of that to them and they haven't signed on with anybody, to me, it's like, whatever. They'll be like, okay, well, sure, you can send me your email. So I would do that. Then I'd always let them know, just so you know, also, we have this 18-month guarantee. And I would explain that. And I can't tell you how many appointments I got out of that. Wow. That they're going to sign on with me, and we had it in writing. I mean, it was all explained out to them, and
sure,
I was there ready to do that if we needed to, I never, it was going to be very rare if I'd have to buy a house back. I mean, again, there's conditions there to do that. Right. But selling it for free, I mean, that was an easy thing to do. Like, I was going to put no listing commission on it for the seller, They don't have to pay me. Okay. We do have to give a percentage. In our case, we did 3% to the buyer's agent. Okay. But then, they have to be buying another house with me. So I am going to get paid on the deal. It's just I'm going to get paid when they buy their next property.
Right.
You sell that one. So, so again, we were able to work all that. But again, it was just like, wow, I'll work with you instead of these guys. So you make yourself stand out. And I think that's really, really key. But I learned all that through coaching and being around, literally the best agents in the country. Those are some of the guys that are in that program.
Well, and I like what you mentioned there too, as well as the best in the country, not just the best in our city or our state, but we're talking about the best of the best. And there's so many professionals who are watching and listening to this right now, and maybe their masterminds aren't super strong in their current location and can't figure it out. But there are so many wonderful real estate professionals around the world who are willing to share that they can look and strategize different ideas and implement to your market. And, and it comes down to it. There are very few original ideas, and it's this old adage: there are no great ideas, only great thieves. So if you look at it from that way, it's how are we taking what Jeff's doing and saying, I really like how Jeff does what he does. He's a true pro. I really like these ideas. How do I take some of that and make it my own in my market, right? And then always evaluate and kind of grow and stronger. And I think that's perfect. And there's so many different takeaways. The last thing that you had mentioned too is, about being in the office. If it's a meeting, a sales meeting, team meeting, whatever, if you're hitting the phones, you're sending out emails, responding, but otherwise you're right. You can do a lot of that outside.
Get out of the office.
Be involved in the community. I think that's crucially important. So there's just so many takeaways and so many beautiful nuggets. Before we move on to the next question though, Jeff, I want to dive a little bit deeper because you are a man that really understands diversity and really just how are you looking at different income streams and to speak to the real estate professionals who are watching or listening to this, like what should they be doing? And not necessarily just looking at it from today and they're doing well, but what's their future look like? What's long-term look like? If you can share a little bit about that.
Right. Well, I think, a couple things. Rental properties, again, we're in this business. I think, definitely great way to get some, I think to be looking at that for sure. How to get, diversify yourself with that, get some income coming in there, from there.
Sure.
There's a lady here in town, and I'd be more than happy to share that information with some people too. Kelly Fasterling, she's a realtor here, but she's also a financial planner.
Oh, very cool.
She has a program out there. She works with a company out of Utah. I think it's Done For You Real Estate, but it's actually pretty cool what they're doing. They've got investors and realtors they work with all across the country. They're a regular real estate office out there in Utah, but what she's done is you come up with your 20% down for your first property.
Okay.
And, like with them, like they're buying properties right now, like in Indianapolis, I think, somewhere in Florida, I want to say Detroit, there's 5 or 6 cities and they're watching all these markets. And so, they'll buy a property. She comes up with her 20% down plus a fee for this other company that Done For You. That's how they make their money. They will watch it over time. You're getting the rent coming in. They manage everything. They rehab it, do all the stuff. They'll either refinance it and pull that equity out, or whatever. Get it to a point where you've got another 20% out of that property to go put down on the next property.
Okay.
Now you've got 2 properties working for you.
Love
so
that.
Now you're watching those, and when it's ready, you pull 20% out here, enough to go buy the third property. She's up to, I think, 10 or 11 properties. But what I love about it, she's never seen one of them.
Wow.
Because they're all in other states, whatever. And again, it's Done For You, whatever. So that's a cool idea. That's something I've been talking to my kids about because I want them to get going. We're going to be doing it. I've got a couple other young realtors I'm working with here that I'm like, just keep working it, keep banking up that money. Let's get your 20%. So now you can go get a property. And again, you could do that locally, but I do like that idea too.
Sure.
Where you can kind of spread that around. I know the first broker I worked with, he had probably 20 properties, and they were all, most of them were paid off. He had several he was paying on, but here's all this rent coming in every month. Well, every year he would go pick one and he would go sell it. Wow. And pretty much because he owns it free and clear outside of your closing costs, here's his money to live on for the year.
Wow.
They'd travel, they do all this stuff, and he'd still sell a couple houses, but he'd buy a couple more properties, and every year he'd just sell a property.
Brilliant.
Because he had 20 of them, he had to build up to that. But now 20 years later, it's like you just constantly have, this is what you can do. And we have access to all this stuff, and we have so many people around us that can really give us some great advice like that on how to do it, that we can turn around now and help clients do the It's the same kind of thing, whatever. And so that's a big one, I think, too. I know, just, and not to push on this too much, but at EXP, I mean, because we have, we get stock bonuses, with all of our closings. I mean, like right now, I've been here 2 years. If I didn't have a closing for the next 12 months, like I've got stock that I could use to get through, this whole thing, whatever. So that's big. There's a revenue share side to this. It's the Keller Williams model, profit share over here, but it's I have to say it's a richer model because it's revenue share. It's just nothing wrong with that one. It's just a different model.
No.
We have no brick and mortar, costs, so we can afford to do that. And so that piece of it has been, it's only about 5% of the agents. We get accused sometimes, all you guys do is recruit. I mean, every company out there is trying to grow. I don't care what company it is. If they're successful, they're trying to build it,
Yeah.
But it's only about 5% of the agents that are actively, reaching out to other agents. And so, but that can be a very lucrative thing as well. I just think it's good to have, the multiple income sources. I was with an agent this morning and we got together. He called me up, and just good friend. We were just catching up and having coffee, and talking about stuff. And he met with his financial guy here yesterday. And he said, man, this guy's all set. He's done very well. He's retired military and he's got a great business. He does about 11 million a year in business. So, decent producer, whatever, doing well. But he met with his financial guy yesterday, and he said, man, I cannot tell you how many realtors I've met with, in the last couple of months who are hanging by a thread.
Wow.
And so it's just, you got that 80-20 rule here. And, it's just, it can be challenging sometimes breaking into that 20. I mean, I think we can all do it. Most just don't have the drive to do it.
Well said.
They don't have the desire to do it. Their why isn't big enough. They get into it thinking this is going to be a cakewalk because, when real estate's on fire, they don't realize there's nothing to sell. That's why.
Oh gosh.
So, I mean,
the truth.
It can be so deceiving in that sense. But I think, you got to do what you can to, again, get out of the office, go meet people, get your cards out there, be active with it, talk to as many people as you can. It's a numbers game,
Wow.
But
Jeff,
along the way you build that, then you start getting, you got to diversify that. You have to, I think.
Yeah. Well, what you're saying there, I mean, it hit on so many different notes, and hopefully I'm not throwing you under the bus, but if anybody's loving what they're hearing or seeing right now through Jeff, please reach out directly to him. I'll have all of his contact info below. He'll be tagged and everything.
Sure.
He's an absolute wealth of knowledge, everybody. So there's so much that you can learn, whether you're in real estate or not. But again, I think that's fantastic. So Jeff, I know the list can go on and on and on with the nuggets here, but I don't want to give everybody everything. So please reach out to this man, follow this man on social media for sure, for more information. And again, how to really grow and scale your business that way. But I do want to shift gears in this particular question, Jeff, through this series. It's the tricky part. It's the challenge question. Now, I never take this lightly. It's always difficult to kind of share or air things out in front of everybody. However, we all have challenges in our lives. No one's exempt, whether it's been in the past, we're dealing with it right now, or we haven't experienced it yet, but no one is exempt. And whether it's personal or professional challenges, I think that it's more so what we learn and what we can grow from and share that truly matters. Not to downplay pain or sorrow, because it's never a good thing to experience a bad thing. But if there's something that you could share with everybody out there, whether it's personally or professionally, that you overcame, became stronger because of it, what's that look like for you, Jeff?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. The first thing that comes to mind, I mean, 2008, that was brutal.
Right.
We got through it, and a lot of the, most of the good agents did, I think the strong agents, but I remember, man, there was, talk about a weeding out process. And of course that lasted for about 3 years, something like that, before we really, truly,
started
to some degree. But I know as a team, I was at Keller Williams at the time, my team, we were having 15, 16 closings a month as a team, I'd have my 2 or 3, whatever, but here's the team closings. We went from having 15 closings a month to 1.
Wow.
And 2, I mean, literally overnight. It happened fast. And, I got 3 people on payroll, I felt so responsible for my agents. I mean, here's, one of my agents, single mom, great agent, but all of a sudden she hadn't had a closing in 3 months. I mean, I'm losing sleep at night. It was just like, felt like, oh my gosh. And, for me as a team leader, what happens? Like my marketing cost goes up because I'm trying to do everything I can to find a deal, a lead, a good lead. I mean, so it was challenging, but we got through it. You learn, I ended up jumping into short sales. I'd done a couple prior to that, but I became an expert in short sales. They were brutal. Oh my, I don't miss. that at all.
Oh,
But,
okay.
man, that was probably 90% of our closings for a couple of years was the short sales,
Wow.
So again, champions adjust,
Yeah.
I mean, it is
Well
what
said.
it is. It was out of our control. There's nothing we can do about it. I mean, I think even what we're going through, I think we're coming out of this pretty quickly. I think
For sure.
we haven't slowed down at all in our business, but I mean, go back 3 months ago. I mean, I don't know. We were all fired up for summer. I mean, we weren't thinking we were going to be in quarantine for 2 months, and then all of a
I don't think
sudden,
anybody saw this coming.
this is like, I'm like, can we just hit a button and go to 2021?
Yeah.
Is there a fast forward button here somewhere?
Skip over this.
I know.
Yes.
Goodness, that's crazy. But we weren't ready for it. And I think, just to hit one other thing, I go back, about 5 years ago. In fact, it was about 5 years ago last month, I think.
Okay.
I go in just annual checkup, and just go to the doctor, get, blood work and just different things, whatever. And come back, and there's like one of the things they've been watching for me was, this was it the PSA number? I forget the number. It's prostate. It's the number they for prostate. Stuff. So I think it's a PSA number if I'm thinking that right. So they wanted the average. They needed to be about 4.0 or below. This is the number. So when you're 50, you start having these tests and different things. Well, anyway, they've been watching it because my dad had prostate cancer and my grandpa had prostate cancer, and it tends to be hereditary. It tends to run in the family. So for me, several years, I'd go in and be 3.8. 1 year was like 4.1. They're like, it's okay, whatever. Next year, 3.9. Well, then I go in here 5 years ago, and it's like 6.8. So they're like, it's not conclusive, whatever. We've seen it as high as 18 or 20, and there's no issues. So we don't know for sure.
Okay.
But we recommend you go into a specialist. Let's get this looked at. So I do, and it comes back, sure enough, hate to tell you, but you've got prostate cancer.
Gosh.
Now, we caught it early, so it's all good. I had surgery and everything, and clean bill of health since, but I will tell you, for about 6 months, I had no closings. I did no real estate, out of choice. I mean, and part of that, again, going back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, I had income coming in from other sources.
Sure.
Another business that my wife and I have that we built over the years, our couple rental properties. We had enough income coming in where the finances wasn't an issue.
Okay.
And that's where I think, until somebody goes through something like that, where again, I'd rather have a backup plan and not need it than need it and not have it.
Absolutely.
And I think that we're not ready sometimes because life happens. Again, what we're in right now, whatever, something in your family, or, the diagnosis that you weren't ready for. I mean, none of us plan on any of this stuff, and, God forbid it, any of it, but it's going to happen. Like, there will be another 2020 here, down the road. I don't know. Hopefully it's not a pandemic, or I don't know. There will be something, whether it's 2 years from now or 8 or 10 years from now, there will be more.
Right.
And that's one thing I got out of 2008, and that experience is like, shortly after, we bought a rental property back then, and some other things. Another business that we started building that was completely outside of real estate, because it's like, if something happens here, we need to be ready the next time. And so all that came together 5 years ago, where we just didn't have to have a closing to get through it. Now, doesn't mean it's not a little tight or something, but we're not losing sleep at night over our finances.
Sure.
And stress there.
Well,
you can't put a price tag on that. I'm just telling you.
But you're living that experience, though, Jeff. And again, I mean, the things that you shared, thanks so much for doing that. Because again, it's not easy to do, but it gives everybody so much point of relief and understanding that the best and the brightest, we all go through different things, just like everybody else. And I think that it's looking at it from the mentality of adapting to really change, right? 2008, you said, hey, 90% of our business is now short sales. We figured it out. We became that expert. You didn't just say, oh, well, let's just give up now. Let's switch. Let's kind of jump ship. That wasn't the case. It's your mindset, motivation to continue to move forward, regardless of what's happening. And again, it's not a fun situation. It's not something that you wish to go through, but life happens, whether it's happening now or 10 years from now or 20 years from now, there's going to be something. So being prepared and planning ahead, and like you said, having that game plan, I'd rather have it and never need to use it than the other way around. And so I think that's good advice for everybody to kind of look at when you're talking about your health. I mean, there's so many professionals who are watching or listening to this that they understand you're nothing without your health, and it can change just like that. And that's where things kind of get scary. So looking at it from the future, it's not just about us, it's about our families and about our communities and the people that are around us. I mean, how are you leaving things, right? And setting yourself up for no matter what situation happens, either the worst case or the best case. So, but Jeff, I just think that's really inspiring because you set things up a certain way, you live your life a certain way, and but by no means is anybody perfect. But I think that you look at it from that standpoint of we can all try, we can all work a little harder, think a little smarter, surround yourself with different people that are thinking the way that you're thinking, Jeff, and we'll all be in such a better place. I mean, out of the worst case of scenario. So, I appreciate you sharing that. It's not easy to do. So thank you so much. I know everybody appreciates that as well. I do want to go to a softer question. This one actually ends up being one of my favorites. It's the travel back in time. So if you could travel back in time, any time frame, any age range, and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would you say to your younger self, Jeff? And I'll throw this out there too. It's not necessarily to change anything you went through, because the positive and the negative, as we just discussed, made you who you are to today. But if you could say something to your younger self, what would it be?
I mean, a couple of things. I go back, even just 10, 11 years ago.
Okay.
With this business, because I was so driven. Like I've always kind of been that way. Like if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. Like I remember when I first got into real estate and I'm reading like, okay, the average realtor does whatever, 6 deals a year, whatever it is. And I was like, 6 deals a year. Like, like, what's that? Like if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm not here to do this. Like,
awesome.
Whatever. And so I'm just like, that just doesn't compute to me. Like I'm just, it's a strength and a weakness. I will go full tilt till I get to where I want to get to. I will. Now, at the same time, I've done that in the wrong way, in the sense of just at the expense of other things.
Sure.
My health, my marriage, my kids. Now, we're still married, 26 years. I mean, it's all good. But I will tell you, major challenges, because, there was that period of time where it's like the family, definitely took a back seat. And again, I go back to 2008, 2009. It was funny because we had just moved into a new house like about a year earlier. I mean, we were having, I would find checks on my desk here. Like I'm digging through papers, cleaning up, and what? Oh my gosh, there's an $8,000 commission check, and I'd have to call the title company to reissue it because it had expired.
Oh my gosh,
a great problem to have, but it's like, what? So we're just, we moved into the new house. It's like, all this stuff. Well, then the bottom falls out. We're not ready for it. It was crazy though. But I'm working all hours of the day and night. Well, wow. We just went through that where it's like, whatever. I come in and it's like, how was your day? How was your day? Okay, everybody's good. Okay, if you need me, I'll be in the office. I'm sitting in here eating my dinner, 8 o'clock at night, whatever, on the phone, answering issues with inspections and putting out fires and whatever, and going to bed long after everybody else is, and up in the morning before everybody else is. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my wife is, here, let me introduce you. Here's your daughter. Oh, right. I have a kid. I'm like,
oh yeah, right.
It's so like the priorities. If I could go back, that would be one thing, definitely.
Okay.
Like just getting a little more like balance. I was so out of balance back then. And again, I think you got to do what you got to do to make it work. And
for sure.
No doubt about that. But if I could go back on it, putting some boundaries on this thing, I think as realtors, I think a lot of times, I mean, it's hard because you get that call on a Sunday afternoon, you're spending time with your family, and you don't want to answer it because you're out with your family, and this is maybe your one day you're taking off, and it rings again and it rings again. It's the third number, the same. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so you answer it, and sorry kids, I gotta go show a house, whatever. And you're afraid to lose the deal. Right. Because they'll just call another agent and talk to them. I mean, I love when I call an agent and they've got on their voicemail, it says, whatever, if you're calling, after 6, I'll call you the next business day, or on the weekend, whatever. They put boundaries on their business. And to me, it's like, it's so professional. We've allowed our business to become unprofessional in a lot of ways because we do just run at the beck and call of everybody at all hours of the day and night, and I get it. But at the same time, it's like, I mean, I had to wrap my head around that. Like, I'd almost rather lose a deal than have my kids grow up looking at me like, geez, that dad, the cat's in the cradle kind of thing, that you listen to that song, it's just like, whatever. I mean, because that's what it was for a while. Like, I was definitely at that point of losing a lot, congratulations, yeah, you made it. You're in the top 20 in town. You're winning all the awards. Everybody knows who you are. Woo, but you lost everything in the process. It's like,
Right.
it's so not worth it when it's
Mm.
all said and done. None of us are going to grow to our graves wish we did another deal.
Mm-mm.
When it's all said and done, those priorities are going to be like, wow, what memories did I build with my family? Who did I have an impact on? What legacy am I leaving? All these things. Like, here's what's really going to matter.
Mm.
So if I could go back, it would be having that kind of talk, in the sense of just, do your business and do it right and work it hard and whatever, but keep your priorities, keep the boundaries there. If you're out on a Sunday with your kids, if you lose a deal, you lose a deal.
Right.
Don't worry about it. I feel like God will turn around and bless you with 2 more deals, because you just, you didn't panic and feel like you had to be at the beck and call of everybody at all hours of the day and night. One other thing I would share, I think, would be, if I could go back to, would just, to not be afraid to tell myself, you can work smarter for sure, but you can also do a little bit more. One of the things I learned early on, I will tell you, a coach that I had with this, there was a group that I was a part of, but he called me up. It was the beginning of the year. It was like in fact, it was January 1st. It was New Year's Day. This goes back 5-6 years ago. He says, okay, he says, I've thought about it, and I want to include you in this group. I'm talking about 25 people. There's actually about 100,000 that I could call, but I've narrowed it down to 25, and you're one of them. Here's the deal. He's like, this is what I need you to do. Every week you need to have at least 25 face-to-face appointments. It could be on Zoom. It could be at a coffee, whatever, but 25 face-to-face appointments, with this thing. So every Sunday night by midnight, you need to text me and let me know that you had at least 25 people. And as long as that happens, you can be a part of this group. We're going to do weekly coaching calls. We're going to do we'll even fly into somebody's city. We're going to do some big things with this. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Love it.
You're going to be around some of the best people in the business, whatever, but this is what it's going to take to be part of this group. Now, prior to that, I will tell you, because I would track things. I track my calls, and I track it all. And I would have, I don't know, maybe 10, 12, different meetings and appointments for the week. Like 25, but it's like, holy cow, like, this sounded such a stretch to me, but I want to be a part of this group.
Right.
And the thing he said too with this, and again, he said, look, if you forget and text me on Monday, you're out of the group.
Wow. That's strict.
Yeah. And if you text me that you hit 24, but not 25, you're out of the group. Like, it's 25, and you need to text me by midnight Sunday night.
Wow.
I'm not going to call you and remind you. It was just like this whole idea, like you're a leader, be a leader. I don't need to remind the leaders. I don't need to push the leaders. The leaders are going to lead. So this is what it's going to take to be part of this group. So here's what it did. It pushed me, and I was able to do it. And in fact, about probably 6 months after I was in that group, me and him, we had a conversation. I want you to do me a favor. I said, I want you to hold me to 35. Because I realized, like, all of a sudden 25 became easy.
Sure.
So my whole point with that is, like, I think it taught me that I can do a lot more than I thought I could do.
Interesting.
And just by being around those people that were also doing it, and by, again, being around strong people, and having that coach and having that accountability, there's so many factors that played into that, but it showed me that I could do more. And I think that's the thing in real estate. I think sometimes we tend to do the bare minimum. Just enough to get by. We can get real busy because we're, whatever, we're working on our website, or we're doing this or doing that, whatever. But to me, it's like, the income producing hours, there's certain times in there, like, I got very good back in the day. I have my schedule blocked out. From 4 to 6 in the afternoons, I was on the phone calling leads. Saturday mornings between 9 and noon, I was calling leads. If somebody would call me on a Thursday and say, hey, we'd like to go look at houses on Saturday, I'd be like, well, I'm booked in the morning. I have an appointment in the morning, but I can definitely meet you probably by 12:30.
Beautiful.
Now, if they were out of state coming in, I made an exception.
Sure.
Whatever. But if they're local, I'm like, they don't need to know that my appointment is with my phone.
Correct.
That's where I'm going to make my money. I'm going to make way more money, 3 hours on the phone. I could talk to easily 30, 35 people and set up 7, 8, 10 appointments for the next week.
Right.
Easily. Versus driving around with a buyer for 4 hours showing them homes, whatever.
Correct.
I'll do that, but not during these hours, because I need to be talking to these leads, and that's where I'm going to make my money, not showing the home. So I eventually hired, got buyer's agents working with me and built that, built the team. So my time was on the phone. I got sick of the phone.
Hmm.
But that's what it is.
Stages, yeah.
Yeah, it's a numbers game. The more people I talk to, the more appointments we're going to have, the more deals we're going to do. So we were doing, 180, 190, we did about 190 homes,
Wow.
our biggest year,
Unreal.
as a team,
Yeah.
not just me, but as a team. So.
But Jeff, what you're mentioning in there, I mean, there's so many applicable pieces of advice. And again, not just for your younger self, but everybody that can apply now, because we can't go back in time. We can't advise our younger selves, but we can act today. Those things that you had mentioned, we can do today and into the future. So having that balance and really looking at it from perspective is, you kind of had two sides of that coin. One is to really focus on the prioritization. What really matters is your family, and know that it's okay to say no. It's okay to turn business away, because you have to focus on what really matters. Because like you said, at the end of the day, you're not going to wish you did another transaction. You're going to wish that you had another conversation with your daughter.
For sure.
You're going to wish that you had a meal with your friends and it was uninterrupted. The money's going to come and go, but those memories and those real relationships, that's priceless. There's no money that you can put on that. And the earlier we all recognize that and understand that, the better. However, for us to live a certain way and provide for a family and grow, you do have to produce. But it's that working smarter, not necessarily harder, and then time blocking and managing and really setting those boundaries and expectations. I think that's the ticket. If someone's looking for a silver bullet or something along those lines to really do it, if you try to balance and figure that out, work real hard, get it done. It's not easy, but take the time that's necessary for yourself and for your family. It's not going to be a burnout sort of scenario. There's so many people that just burn it at both ends. They work real hard. They run real long for 5-7 years, and then they die. They're just done. They're toast. They can't do it anymore. And then, like you said, the relationships are gone. They're an absentee father or mother, right? And the relationships are just shattered. So I think that to have the opportunity for somebody like yourself to say, just take a step back, look at it, understand that this is a life and you got to prioritize. Everybody's going to be better off for that. Period, Jeff. That's beautiful advice. It is absolutely beautiful advice. Through one of the best and brightest. Again, it's an honor to have you, Jeff. This is incredible. So I do want to go into, we have 2 questions left and we're almost done. So this is actually the feeding in the mind portion. This is another crowd pleaser because everyone wants to learn the way the Titans learn. So at the end of the day, how are you feeding your mind, Jeff? If it's books you're reading or read, podcasts you're listening to or enjoy, conferences, you already mentioned, coaching programs, things like that. But again, at the end of the day, how are you feeding your mind? How are you growing?
Sure. Well, several things. I start every morning. I get up every morning and before any appointment. If I have an 8 o'clock appointment and I need to leave by 7:30, I always just back time it, so I got to get in the shower by 7. So I got to get up by 6 so I can have my coffee and read, every day I'm reading, for at least an hour, in the morning and sometimes more.
Okay.
I start with the Bible for myself. I do read the Bible every day, but then other books, I love to read.
Oh yeah. If you're listening, there are bookshelves on both sides of Jeff's office.
Yeah, and I'm running out of room. Like they're stacking up now, but I got to figure out how to do it. But I love to read. I think there's just such a wealth there. I love one book I'm actually reading right now is it's called Get Your Life Back. It's by John Eldredge.
Cool.
Which is more of a Christian writer, but it's so applicable to what we're doing, and just again the balance. It's just that whole thing, and so that's a really good book. I love his stuff, but. When I'm driving around in my car, I've got an account with Audible, and I just find I rarely listen to music. My wife and I'll go out on a date, we got music on the car.
Right.
Every so often, if it's just maybe a stressful day or something, I'll put on a little music. But for the most part, for me, honestly, like my car, I take advantage of that. All the way down south to this appointment I had this morning and all the way back, for an hour, I'm listening to a book,
That's awesome.
And so I like Audible, I take advantage of that in a big way. Mm-hmm. There's one I listened to here recently. It's called, it's how to win at the sport of business. Mark.
Okay. Very cool.
So real quick, it's like 3 hours, but I've listened to that like 2 or 3 times. It's just, it's gold. That was a good one. T. Harv Eker, he wrote Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, but he's got one out as an Audible book I'm listening to. It's called True Wealth.
Okay.
That's really good. So just learning, continue to learn money, and investing and all that kind of stuff. And that's good. There's one, Atomic Habits. I've been listening to that one here. recently, just started on that one too. That's a good one. But Jim Rohn, I don't know if you like Jim Rohn. I love Jim Rohn. Used to coach. He passed away several years ago. But in terms of just personal development and stuff, it's like, man, he was like the king of that,
No doubt.
I love listening to Jim Rohn stuff. I've probably got 30, 40 hours of Jim Rohn, saved up on, either, YouTube videos that I've saved. I've got some CD sets up here. I've got some, whatever Audible books of his, so awesome. I love listening to his stuff. I do listen to, I like reading a lot of Robert Kiyosaki.
Okay.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I mean, of course, that came out years ago. I will tell you, the book absolutely changed my life was the second book that he wrote, which was called the Cashflow Quadrant.
Okay.
And, he introduces that in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but he really breaks it down in the second book, which is the Cashflow Quadrant. And there was one question, I'll never forget this, probably 11 years ago, I'm reading this book. He says, he asked this question, are you a business owner? And I'm thinking, yeah, I got my real estate business. I got my, here's my 4 agents working with me and my wife, and here's my personal assistant. She gets a check every 2 weeks. She's on payroll. I got my inside sales guy. He's on payroll every 2 weeks. I got another assistant, transaction coordinator that I'm paying per deal, all this stuff, whatever. Here's my real estate business. He says, well, here's the test. Can you walk away for 1 year with no contact whatsoever? No emails, no phone calls, nothing. Come back in a year from now and your business is still there, or it even grew while you were gone. If you can answer yes to that, you're a true business owner. If not, you own a job.
Wow.
And dude, that hit me like,
oh yeah,
big time. Because I just realized like it wasn't set up to run without me. It could run to a point, but I remember taking our kids. We did a trip to Disney World, and we were down there for about 10 days. And my brother lives in Tampa. We spent some time with him and just different things. Had a great time, but kids loved it. It was a great vacation. And
for sure.
A lot of good memories from that. However, I remember 4 days in particular sending my wife to the park with the kids. I'll call you when I get there, because what am I doing? I'm on my laptop in the hotel room putting out fires.
Wow.
Dealing with inspection issues, dealing with contract issues, answering questions for the agents on my team about deals they've got going on, whatever. I remember standing in line, we're like next to get on the ride. I'm on the, Dad, I'm like, let him go ahead of you. I'm almost done. I'm like, oh my God. Like, like I'm not on vacation.
Oh, no.
I just moved my office to Orlando. It's like, oh my God, I'm stressed out of my mind. I know what I'm coming back to, whatever. So, but I just remember that book and that whole idea. I'm just like, I've got to build this differently. I've got to get smarter about how I'm doing this, because it just won't run without me. And so that is one of the things I love. Again, not to, like with seriously, like the EXP model, like there's I think the thing I love about it, and I think why agents are flocking here. The big agents are just flocking here. I've never seen anything like it. But the big thing about it, I think, is that we all have that opportunity to build something between the stock bonuses and the revenue share piece of this for those that want to. It's like, I think within a couple, 2-3 years, everybody at least has an option here. Right. You can still do 50, 100 deals a year if you want to, I've got a good friend, Kathy Carter. She's in Nashville, and, she's all about her real estate. She's doing, 50 deals a year. She's been around for 21 years and managing broker at Keller Williams for 4 years, and realtor of the year, whatever, rookie of the year, her first year. She's got all kinds of awards she's won. But, she's not about recruiting agents. That's not her thing. But over 3 years of being here, she's had 17 agents join her. Like one every other month, basically. Yeah. Okay, not a big deal. I was on the phone with her just the other day. She shared with me, the 17 have grown to 700 because they've shared it. And so anyway, last month, she shared with me, she had 2 closings of her own. Okay.
Yeah.
But she got paid on 311 closings.
Unreal. 309
of those came from those 700 agents. Now, here's the cool thing out of that. Like, she's not a broker owner. She's not liable for those deals.
Right.
She doesn't have to train them. She doesn't have to feed them leads. She's, whatever. It's none of that. She doesn't have a brick and mortar office with 700 agents. How much would that cost?
Incredible.
So, it's just like, that's the beauty of this model, is like we're able to build something like that. Everybody, the brand new agent to the one that's been around for 30 years. Like, we can build something that it's almost like having a brokerage, Like, my team with this has grown to about 100 people, but which isn't huge, but I never had a team like that. My team had 4 or 5, but I'm not responsible for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're still doing our deal. We've had like 22 closings, my wife and I, this year,
Sure.
so far. We'll end the year with probably 40, 45, 50.
Right.
A good year.
Sure.
Nothing like what we were doing back in the day, but it's because it's by choice. We don't have to.
Correct.
And again, the priorities being just a little bit different. Like, I'm not looking to be the big guy in town anymore. I just don't need to be that,
Right.
like whatever. I want to have those memories and, and impact people. I want to be able to impact other agents as well.
Wow.
And share that, but that's the beauty of kind of what we're doing here. But so I feed my mind a lot. I think, between the books, the Audible stuff, I'm like, turn your car into don't let it just be a jukebox. I mean, turn it into a library, and just take advantage of all the time we're in our cars driving around and just learn. There's so much we can learn here, real estate books, personal development books, man. You just, you become that person. Your income will keep up with that,
Well said. I think
Jim Rohn has that. Jim Rohn has that quote. It's like, success isn't something you pursue. It's like, it's almost like it follows you. You know what I mean? You become this person, and then success will follow. It's just like, so it's not the income will follow, because you become that person.
Yeah, and I think that's true though, Jeff. When you're mentioning from so many different sources, from the physical books to the audio books to surrounding yourself with these people and having these conversations and just constantly feeding your mind, and it's that the learners are earners, right? I think that's so true, and coming from somebody like you, Jeff, is absolutely incredible. And this has just been so chock full of amazing information, takeaways, really understanding who you are as a man, but then really just applicable knowledge for anybody who's watching or listening. So I know that everybody's just super excited to pause this, rewind this, reach directly out to you. I mean, Jeff, this has just been absolutely incredible. I do want to wrap everything up with a final question. And this ends up being the quote or mantra that sums you up as a man, as a professional. What's that look like for you? I mean,
there's just one out here, because I've got this. I've had this on my phone for years. Let me pull this up here, because it's I've got it right here. I've had it as my screenshot even sometimes. I love this quote. I mean, it's a James Michener quote.
Okay.
And maybe you've heard this. The master in the art of living. You ever heard this one? So the master in the art of living makes little distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his information and his recreation, his love and his religion. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence at whatever he does, leaving others to decide whether he is working or playing. To him, he's always doing both.
Wow.
I love that quote. Like, that's kind of been my thing. Like, again, because if you really are enjoying what you're doing, you hear that quote, it's not, you don't work another day in your life.
Sure.
Steve Jobs, whoever said that. There's a lot of truth to that. So that's been kind of my thing. Like, I want to really enjoy what I'm doing, and I'm not. And the other thing too is like, just, to not be afraid of getting uncomfortable. Whatever life happens outside of your comfort zone. I mean, that's the other one, because there's been so many things I've done that just were just a total leap of faith. But I get people like, oh my God, you're so lucky. I'm like, no, like, luck has nothing to do with it. Oh my gosh, I'm just like, here's what I've done, and whatever. I remember when I was at Keller Williams, and I trained there several times, and I love doing that. Again, I love working with the agents and stuff. But I would have some agents like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? How are you selling? You and your team. Oh my God, 150 homes a year, 100, whatever. How are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm paying, $14,000 a year for real estate coaching with Craig Proctor. I go to, the two Keller Williams events. I go to the NAR conference. I go to 3 Craig Proctor conferences a year. Like, here's here's what I do. I'm spending about $10,000 a month in marketing. And I had a big team at that point, or whatever it was, even more than that sometimes.
Sure.
Oh my gosh, I would never do that. Well, okay. I mean, you asked. I mean, here's why you're doing 6 deals, and here's why I'm doing 100. Whatever. Like, you got to go after it. Like, it is what it is. There's nothing comfortable about a lot of that. You build to that, but not being afraid to step across that line and get out of your comfort zone. I've been able to have some amazing experiences and go to some amazing places, and flying a paramotor over Dubai to skydiving to scuba diving in Cancun. It took a 30-minute Mexican scuba diving lesson.
Wow.
God, don't do it. I'm like, no, whatever. Like, why not? Now I got some scuba equipment in my garage. That's my next thing. I want to get licensed, certified, so I can go do it like permanently.
Awesome.
But not being afraid to try stuff, because man, there's so much life out there. And I just think so many people, it's like they're just in this little bubble and they're in this routine, and this is how it is. And I'm like, next thing you know, 30, 40 years are gone. It's like, what happened?
Yeah. Blink of
You
an
know,
eye.
like, I mean, seriously, I'm 57, you know, whatever.
Right.
I mean, and I'm like, you know, however long I got left here, I mean, I'll be here a long time, you know?
Yeah.
So,
No,
um,
it's absolutely incredible, Jeff. I mean, everything that you said is just, resonated with the hearts and minds of everybody's watching or listening. And this is just such an amazing opportunity to speak with one of the best and brightest. And again, I can't thank you enough for taking your time, sharing your knowledge and your story with everybody out there. And Jeff, you are an official real estate titan, my friend. So that is the thing. It's official now. But thank you again so much for your time. It was awesome.
thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all you're doing too. I mean, I appreciate you. I love watching these and listening in on these as well. So thank
It's
you
an
so
honor.
much.
It's an honor on my part for sure. I want to thank everybody out there as well, as always, for your time and attention, your love and support. If you like what we're doing here with Real Estate Titans, don't forget to like, subscribe. You know what to do at this point. I do have to give our sponsor a quick shout out, Linebolt Media. If you are in real estate, you're looking to grow and scale your business digitally, really looking at it from the standpoint of exposing yourself to the proper markets, buyers and sellers, automating and leveraging, go to lineboltmedia.com, take a look at that. So we are live here with Real Estate Titans every Tuesday and Friday afternoon, a different Titan, a different location. Catch everybody on the next live episode of Real Estate Titans. Take care. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.